The bank manager's voice was a cold, flat thing, devoid of empathy, as he informed Elijah that his farm's operating funds were frozen. The words, "flagged for unusual activity," echoed in the sterile, air-conditioned silence of the First Agricultural Trust's main branch. Elijah, his hands still calloused and faintly smelling of rich earth from the morning's work, stood before the polished mahogany desk, feeling every inch the outsider. The power dynamic was a chasm. Mr. Henderson, in his tailored suit, a man who understood spreadsheets but not soil. And Elijah, a third-generation black farmer whose very life was rooted in the land Henderson S. Bank now threatened to repossess. "It's a standard procedure for accounts we deem high risk," Henderson said, not meeting Elijah's eyes. He gestured vaguely at a file. "A sudden large deposit from an out-of-state source. We have to protect the institution." The implication hung in the air, heavy and insulting. The deposit was a grant from a sustainable agriculture nonprofit, money Elijah had fought for years to secure. To Henderson, a black man with a sudden influx of cash couldn't be legitimate. Elijah's jaw tightened. He thought of the heirloom seeds waiting to be planted, the new irrigation lines his grant was meant to fund. He didn't shout. He simply placed his weathered hands on the cool wood of the desk, a silent plea for reason. "This land has survived worse than you," he thought, the memory of his grandfather's struggles afire in his blood. Weeks turned into a desperate, silent battle. Elijah worked from dawn until dusk, his body aching, his spirit sustained only by the stubborn green shoots pushing through the soil. He sold his old truck. He took out predatory loans from a private lender. The indignation of his community was a low hum, but Henderson's bank remained an impenetrable fortress. Then, the crisis hit. A freak early frost, the worst in a century, swept through the county. It wasn't just a cold snap, it was an agricultural massacre. Overnight, the vast monoculture fields of corn and soy that supplied the region's major distributors were turned to blackened sludge. Panic began to ripple through the county. Grocery store shelves emptied. Henderson, whose bank was deeply invested in those large farms, watched his own stability turn to ash. It was the county mayor, desperate and pale, who called the emergency town hall. Farmers wept in the crowded high school auditorium. Distributors warned of a food shortage. In the back of the room, Henderson sat, calculating the bank's catastrophic losses. Then a quiet, resonant voice cut through the despair. "The frost didn't touch my fields." All eyes turned to Elijah. He hadn't sought the spotlight. He was simply stating a fact. He explained, calmly and without gloating, that his farming methods, the diverse heirloom polyculture Henderson's frozen funds had almost prevented, were naturally resilient. His crops, nestled together and protected by companion planting, had weathered the freeze. He didn't just have food, he had a harvest that could feed the entire county through the winter. It was a revelation born not from luck, but from a wisdom the bank had dismissed as worthless. The mayor nearly collapsed with relief. Henderson, seeing a financial and public relations lifeline, rushed to Elijah after the meeting. "Name your price," Henderson blurted out, his voice strained. "We'll unfreeze your account today. A bonus. We'll buy your entire harvest right now at a premium." He saw a product to be controlled, a problem to be purchased. Elijah looked at the man who had nearly destroyed him. He thought of the other small farmers, the ones without his secret, resilient methods, who were now facing ruin. "No," Elijah said, his voice quiet but firm. "My food isn't for you to own and resell at a profit. It's for the people you and your bank just failed." In the stunned silence that followed, the full story unfolded. A local journalist dug deeper. The article that ran the next day wasn't just about the frost. It was about Elijah. It revealed he held a master's degree in sustainable agronomy from a prestigious university. It detailed how he had turned down lucrative corporate jobs to honor his grandfather's legacy, to prove that small, smart farming could outlast industrial agriculture. Henderson wasn't just a cautious banker. He was exposed as a man whose unconscious bias had blinded him to the very innovation that would have protected his bank's investments. The bank's board, facing public fury, suspended him indefinitely. A week later, a transformed Henderson stood at the edge of Elijah's thriving fields. He didn't offer a handshake. He offered a partnership proposal drafted with the county and local community foundation. The bank would create a new, low-interest loan fund specifically for sustainable and minority-owned farms, with Elijah as the lead advisor. It wasn't a purchase order. It was a plea for his wisdom. Elijah accepted. The man who had been deemed a risk became the county's salvation, his harvest distributed through a community-led co-op that strengthened every local farmer. The frost had broken the old system, and from its frozen ground, something more resilient and just began to grow. It proves that true wealth isn't always in a bank vault. Sometimes it's in the wisdom of the soil and the dignity of the hands that tend it. If this story about resilience and transformative justice touched you, subscribe for more tales of hidden potential revealed.